We're here in Paris, which this week will host the world, but tonight the world is focused on the stunning news that Joe Biden is ending his campaign for president.
I think it was time for him to move on.
Biden drops out. Kamala Harris says she's in, upending the race.
I was surprised, but I'm glad he did the right thing.
The sudden decision, the avalanche of endorsements, and the Democrats' urgent push for unity.
She's going to be able to take on Donald Trump and prosecute the case.
We break down what happens now, just over 100 days left in the campaign.
And here in Canada, a remarkable story of survival on the North Atlantic. They're being called the Lucky Seven, rescued after nearly 3 days on a life raft off the coast of Newfoundland.
When I heard that chopper come over, I saw all the warmth was back in my body, I'll tell you that.
How they were found in the nick of time, and the emotional homecoming. Thousands evacuated in Alberta and B.C.
You know it's close, you know, you see the houses.
As heat and smoke settle over Western Canada.
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Hannah-Mansing and Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault in Paris.
Thank you for joining us. With just days to go until the Olympics begin right here, the world's attention is suddenly focused on a very different race for the American presidency. Joe Biden making an unprecedented move to drop out, plunging his party and the country into uncertainty. So the news came in a signed letter to Americans released this afternoon and was quickly followed by another announcement, Biden endorsing Vice-President Kamala Harris to take his place. Tonight, her campaign is urgently pushing to unite the party around her, with the election less than 4 months away. So we have extensive coverage tonight, beginning with Paul Hunter in Washington on the sudden decision and the fallout.
Outside the White House, as word spread quickly, the messaging was simple and, from Biden supporters, heartfelt. Thank you. In a letter made public by Biden, he wrote, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president, but that it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president." And so it is that Joe Biden is no longer running for re-election. His decades-long career in U.S. politics will end at the close of this term in January. Before then, there will be a U.S. election. And on that, in a statement from Biden on X, formerly known as Twitter, he called his Vice President Kamala Harris the best decision I've made, giving, quote, "my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year." It turns U.S. politics on its ear, opening the door now to a possible open convention for Democrats with an as yet undeclared candidate, or the party may quickly agree on Harris. For Biden, the decision to quit is not entirely unexpected. The oldest president ever to serve in America, he'd been under fierce pressure to step aside ever since that disastrous debate performance with Donald Trump in June.
With the COVID, with
the whispers he was too old for the job turned into a firestorm, and separate missteps would follow.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
Questions on his mental acuity growing louder still. Fellow Democrats, both privately and publicly, pushing him to go because all the while, Donald Trump's standing in the polls seemed to strengthen. A would-be assassin's bullet all but deifying Trump in the eyes of his backers. And then Biden caught COVID again.
I want to begin by commending President Biden for a career in public service.
Independent candidate for the White House Robert Kennedy Jr. opened with generous remarks. Donald Trump took a different approach, writing on his social media platform Truth Social, "Crooked Joe Biden was not fit to run for president and is certainly not fit to serve, and never was." Democrats had praise for both Biden and Harris.
Joe Biden was a fighter for the little guy. Kamala Harris is equally strong and determined to work and fight for the everyday American.
So, Paul, can you give us a sense of what is next for Biden in the coming days?
Well, he's still the president, and there's a country to run. His COVID is apparently easing up.
likely allowing him out of isolation next week. Significantly, it's a week when Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be in Washington for an official visit at a crucial time in Israel's war on Hamas in Gaza. On top of that, it's expected Biden will address the nation directly on TV at some point in the week to further explain his decision to step away from his bid for re-election. A momentous day today for Joe Biden, a significant week for him still to come.
And so in terms of replacing Biden, how locked in is the momentum behind Harris?
It's pretty locked in already. Some of the other names that had been bandied about in the event Biden quit have endorsed Harris, including Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. California Governor Gavin Newsom said there's no one better placed than Harris for the job. Interestingly, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer is among those who didn't go that far. She said simply she'll do whatever it takes to help beat Trump in November. But so far, so good for Harris, though in the new road to the nomination, it is still early days.
All right, Paul Hunter in Washington. Thank you, Paul. So as Paul mentioned, there is a growing list of Democrats and donors endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris, among them Bill and Hillary Clinton and Senator Elizabeth Warren, who ran for the Democratic nomination in 2020. Harris was also endorsed by the Congressional Black Caucus and some major party donors, including Alex Soros, the son of billionaire George Soros. Now, if Harris does secure the nomination, she will have just a few months to try to unite the Democratic Party and wage a campaign against Donald Trump. Chris Reyes is in New York tonight with more on her chances and the challenges ahead.
From her home city of Oakland, California, there are early trickles of support for Kamala Harris' presidency.
She's not afraid to speak loudly. And, you know, that's what we need right now.
But for voters blindsided by Biden's announcement, questions linger about the woman he endorsed.
I like her, but I also feel like she's not super popular. I think if Obama came out and said, yeah, stick with Kamala.
So far, the former president hasn't done that. Barack Obama's statement was full of praise for Biden, but no hint of who he thinks should replace him. From the Clintons, a much stronger stance. In their statement, Bill and Hillary wrote, "We are honored to join the president in endorsing Vice President Harris and will do whatever we can to support her." Other Democrats coming forward.
Vice President Harris has shown her stuff as a world leader. She brings receipts to this campaign. She's a fierce debater. She's going to be able to take on Donald Trump.
That support could go a long way. Harris's nomination isn't a sure thing. She still has to win a majority of delegates at the Democratic convention to make it official.
Her approval ratings as vice president are not great. In fact, in kind of the current polling, the matchups against former President Trump, she's faring only kind of marginally better than President Biden.
In her time as vice president, Harris has not had a huge profile. Some have said she's been sidelined to give Biden more room to shine. One record the Republicans are hitting hard, her appointed role in responding to the border crisis.
Still doesn't get it.
This attack ad was released right after Biden's decision.
That's the truth about Kamala Harris. She's dangerously liberal on illegal immigration.
Also taking a direct hit at Harris, newly minted Trump running mate J.D. Vance, who posted on X, "Joe Biden has been the worst president in my lifetime, and Kamala Harris has been right there with him every step of the way." He then accused her of lying for 4 years about Biden's mental capacity.
So, Chris, Harris is already seeing, I gather, like a surge of money come in to support her presidential campaign. What does this tell us?
That's right, Adrian. Small money donors brought in almost $30 million within hours of Kamala Harris's presidential campaign going live. That tells you there's a lot of grassroots excitement for her. But it's worth noting that in the first moments of Biden's announcement, many elected Democrats were focused on him and the gravity of that decision. You could almost sense the shock and sadness in their statements. But now you're starting to see their attention turned to Harris and showing strong support for her bid.
All right, Chris Reyes in New York. Thank you, Chris. So from here in France and around the world, a lot of reaction to Biden's news, a reminder of the key role the U.S. plays on the global stage.
El presidente de Estados Unidos, Joe Biden, anunció que se retira.
It was breaking news just about everywhere, from Bogota, Colombia,
Джо Байден заявил, что выходит из президентской гонки.
to Russian state TV, and it garnered reaction from many world leaders, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who in a statement described Biden as a partner to Canadians and a true friend. The UK's new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, saying he respects Biden's choice, and I know that he will have made his decision based on what he believes is in the best interests of the American people. And from Russia tonight, some interesting comments from the Foreign Ministry, which accused U.S. media and political circles of hiding the truth about Biden's mental state and said there should be an investigation. There is a lot more for us to break down at this pivotal moment. How will Biden be remembered politically? And crucially, how will he be replaced? The Democratic Convention just 4 weeks away. We will dig into what happens next. But first, it's over to Ian in Vancouver with the rest of tonight's top stories.
Thanks, Adrian. It's an emotional weekend for a community in Newfoundland and Labrador after 7 missing fishermen were brought safely home. New West Valley is perched on the edge of the Atlantic, and for days, people there braced for the worst. So as Arlette Lazarenko shows us, the men's return has sparked a weekend-long celebration and more than a few tears.
In this Newfoundland fishing community, the sound of celebration, of life, and what so many here are calling a miracle. The incredible survival of the crew of the Elite Navigator, a group of men now known as the Lucky Seven.
Not just a miracle, but 7 miracles, because they were all saved.
Just days ago, so many here were gripped with fear. The boat had vanished on the water. The crew now says there was a fire, and it sank.
It was happening to us. I couldn't believe it was happening, right?
They scrambled to abandon ship. 2 crew members couldn't swim. Quick thinking got them all in a life raft, but fog complicated the search and time dragged on.
We worked well together and we took care of each other and we knew we'd get through it eventually.
I had a little bit of doubt for myself on the last night because I was wet and cold when I was getting colder and colder. I said, this is not good for me, right? But when I heard that chopper come over, I said, all the warmth was back in my body, I'll tell you that.
After nearly 3 days, the Coast Guard finally spotted the crew's last red flare.
All of a sudden, I heard the chopper turn around and the spotlight come on me, and it's just crazy.
An end to their nightmare and their families waiting at home.
I didn't have much hope, I gotta be honest.
The whole world was just taken right away from me at that time, right? And I said, oh no, they're gonna make it.
Their homecoming on Saturday was met with cheers and tears and relief. Now they are being celebrated by the Premier.
Welcome home.
And their community, who gathered by the hundreds to celebrate together and cheer on their heroes.
This is a homecoming many here will remember for a long time. And it will be marked in another way too. The Premier says the province will create some kind of a recognition, like a statue, to celebrate the safe return of the Lucky Seven. Arlette Lazarenko, CBC News, New West Valley, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Evacuation orders are expanding in Western Canada tonight. Lightning combined with tinder dry conditions are threatening to spark new fires. There are currently more than 470 wildfires burning across B.C. and Alberta, where the fire danger rating remains high or extreme. Several communities in B.C.'s interior and northern Alberta have been evacuated. More than 7,000 people have been forced from their homes in just Alberta alone. Sam Sampson shows us how some are coping.
This is how Billy Joe Moberly fled the fire. Overnight, he navigated highways and back roads in this school bus, carrying 4 families, including his own.
We had to leave one family back because we didn't have enough room.
A firefighter for 28 years, Moberly knew when things were getting bad in his northern Alberta First Nation.
You know it's close, you know, you see the ashes and all the real strong smell of smoke. Barely can breathe.
The SEMO complex fire is bigger than the size of Calgary and growing. It's threatening the 3 communities that make up Little Red River Cree Nation. Fox Lake was evacuated last year due to wildfire. This year's fire is so big and so hot, everyone was forced to leave. It's also starting to cut off the remote area's main highway, the only road out.
We lose those roads, the power goes out. Yeah, we're scared to lose it all.
With 7,500 evacuees in Alberta, hotel rooms are hard to come by. Jason Savard nabbed one for his family Saturday night.
We're happy we got to sleep in a bed instead of the truck.
We've met some very tired, sleepy people staying in their cars for hours as they wait for a room at this hotel, one of the many hotels across northern and central Alberta accepting evacuees. In British Columbia, a punishing heat wave only encouraged fires to grow out of control. Hundreds have been ordered out, and about 2,000 people are on evacuation alert, ready to leave at a moment's notice.
It's tough, you know, it's a lot of anxiety. Worried about the village, worried about people that live here, worried about people getting out of here, just worried about what's going to happen.
Sam, even those not in the direct line of the wildfires are feeling the effects.
That's right, and particularly the smoke is really bad, even if you're hundreds of kilometers away from any fire, kind of like we are here. In Edmonton, all weekend, the air quality health index was at extremely poor levels, in fact, the worst rating that it can get. And on Sunday, particularly, that was also the case in places like Yellowknife and Saskatoon. So again, even if you can't see fire, you can't see the flames, every time you go outside, you can smell it, you can taste it, and you'll think about it. Ian?
Sam Sampson reporting from smoky Edmonton this evening. Israel is striking back at Houthi forces in Yemen. Clouds of black smoke and flames were seen rising in the sky over a Houthi-controlled port on the Red Sea. Israel says the port was used to receive weapons from Iran. The airstrike came the day after the Houthis launched a drone attack on Tel Aviv, killing one Israeli citizen. A return to business in Bangladesh after the Supreme Court scaled back the controversial government job quota system, which sparked deadly protests. The court ruled 93% of civil service jobs must be handed out based on merit. Only 5% will be given to the relatives of veterans who fought in the War of Independence. Thousands of students had taken to the streets, angry over the system. The protest triggered a crackdown that left dozens dead. A new warning tonight about ticks infecting more and more Canadians, and it's not just Lyme disease.
It was heartbreaking, really.
They lost their loved one after she was bitten in her own backyard. The growing concern over growing cases. Next. Dozens of bikers ride thousands of kilometers north in an attempt to drive change.
And as Biden bows out, the focus shifts. What's next for Kamala Harris, her party, and a campaign in chaos? Special coverage continues. We're back in 2 minutes.
Medical experts are once again warning Canadians to be on the lookout for ticks. As Lauren Pelly tells us, they not only carry Lyme disease, but a host of lesser-known infections that are on the rise.
Marianne Harris was a beloved artist and musician, but in 2021, less than a day after she started experiencing symptoms of nausea, double vision, and fatigue, Harris was on life support.
She wasn't conscious. She was hooked up to like 70 different machines. Every time you do this.
Her husband of 4 decades says the mystery illness left Harris paralyzed.
There was no response from her whatsoever. It was just, it was heartbreaking, really.
Tests later showed Harris had Powassan virus, and she likely caught it from getting a tick bite in her own yard in Ottawa without ever knowing it. There are multiple tick-spread diseases on the rise in Canada. Lyme disease is the most familiar, with annual case counts now in the thousands. Canada is also tracking Powassan virus, plus babesiosis, an infection caused by a parasite, and a bacterial infection called anaplasmosis.
We're looking at hundreds and hundreds of cases.
This federal research scientist says climate change is helping ticks expand their range, which could mean more infections in the years ahead.
And we are seeing a lot more case counts, specifically always looking at Ontario, Quebec, and Nova Scotia.
The more you look, the more you find.
Infectious diseases specialist Dr. Isaac Bogosh warns there needs to be more surveillance and awareness.
We've had these infections in the country for some time. We just weren't aware of it or doing the appropriate diagnostic tests.
I guess that's one.
Harris's husband and sister say it took time for their loved one to get a diagnosis. What's worse, there's no cure for Powassan virus.
For the last almost 3 years, she just coped with that, and she was incredible.
Harris passed away in hospital last month at the age of 71. Her family wants more doctors to know the risks.
When they see someone with these kind of symptoms, they have to start looking at the possibility of it being a tick-borne illness.
Experts say the best thing Canadians can do is prevent tick bites from happening in the first place. Wear long clothing and only walk on cleared paths, even in urban areas. And if you do find a tick on your body, save it and bring it to your doctor. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
The federal government has a new plan to make homes net zero. It involves phasing out oil-fired furnaces. David Thurton now on why some say that strategy doesn't go far enough.
Okay, so this is your furnace room.
Yep. This old furnace is keeping Chris Taggart's home from being truly green. He's electrified his water boiler, added new insulation, and sealed up leaky cracks, all with the hope of saving money and cutting his carbon footprint.
The one thing that we were trying to do, and then we didn't quite make it into our budget, was replacing our gas furnace.
He hoped a new federal green building strategy would offer some help with that.
This is the first comprehensive green building strategy in Canada's history.
That strategy notes Canada's buildings are the third largest source of emissions, after the oil and gas sector and transportation. And almost all those emissions from homes and commercial buildings come from heating and cooling systems. Because of that, the federal energy minister says the new green building strategy commits to phasing out one of the most polluting forms of home heating, furnace oil.
As early as 2028, we will be moving to ban the use of heating oil in new construction. And that simply reflects the fact that there are lots of alternatives to heating oil. And heating oil is enormously expensive, and it is the most polluting fuel that we use to heat our homes.
But this energy efficiency advocate says the government should go further, helping more homes get off natural gas and propane heating, not just heating oil.
If we want to hit net zero in buildings, we need to get off of fossil fuels. And the strategy does not contain anything about moving away from natural gas as is.
I think it's a missed opportunity not to go further.
For homeowners like Taggart, he'll keep doing what he can to help Canada reduce its emissions, whether those changes are big or small. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
A group of BC bikers rolled into Yellowknife with a message. Their calls to change the helmet rules for riders with turbans right after the break.
And now that Biden is out, who will take on Trump? With just over 100 days now until America votes, we break down the history of this moment and what could happen next. The National takes you deeper into the stories shaping our world.
Members of a BC-based motorcycle club rolled into Yellowknife this week, showing off their rides and their turbans. The bikers are Sikh, and as Natalie Pressman explains, they're hoping to convince the Northwest Territories to grant a religious exemption to its helmet laws.
The Sikh Motorcycle Club's 3-day journey from BC ended with a ride around Yellowknife.
This ride is pretty much 5,500 kilometers, 5,000 to 5,500. We ride safely.
The club has driven all across the country, raising awareness about helmet exemptions for turban or dastar-wearing Sikhs. It's something Sikhs have been calling for decades. Some provinces have granted an exemption, but Saskatchewan, the provinces east of Ontario, and the territories have not.
Only few provinces left in Canada where we need a permission so that a person who born in a Sikh religion can ride a bike without helmet, wearing a turban. So that was the goal to come here.
The Sikh belief is that nothing should be worn over top of the dastar. And even though riding a motorcycle can be dangerous, the World Sikh Organization of Canada says it should be a personal choice.
This is just another one of those things that we can agree or disagree, but people have the right to make their own choices.
The organization is advocating for accommodations not just for motorcyclists.
A really important thing is the accommodation of the hard hat on work sites. So, I mean, recreational motorcycling is important, and obviously that's something that people are working on. But for us, people who aren't able to work because of the dastar or the turban,
The government of the Northwest Territories says it has no plans to grant helmet exemptions for motorcyclists. But beyond advocacy, the motorcyclists connected with Northerners and some challenging roads.
That's why our stickers say our Survive the Mackenzie Yellowknife Highway, because there are some surprises. People are not used to the frost heaves and the potholes and the bison.
It is really amazing to see people are visiting us, and it's creating a connection.
And thank you from the bottom of Sikh Motorcycle Club.
And the Sikh motorcyclists say those community connections made it worth the long ride. Natalie Pressman, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Now, let's dig deeper into the news shaping our world. Joe Biden's historic exit pushes Kamala Harris into the spotlight.
This race will be decided by you.
The Democratic convention just 4 weeks away, and so much is up in the air.
The timing is very tight for Democrats.
It's a very dramatic moment.
Will they bet it all on Harris, or does someone else have a shot at beating Donald Trump? Let's break it all down. Kamala Harris has a shot at the top job and the chance to carve some incredible firsts into political history. Here's Ellen Morrow to examine her prospects and to point out potential rivals.
President Biden says his first decision as nominee in 2020 was picking Kamala Harris to be his vice president. His first move after dropping out of the race now, endorsing her to take his place.
This is probably the most significant election of our lifetime.
Harris at the top of the ticket would be historic. Formerly a prominent senator and before that California's attorney general, Harris as vice president has been the Biden administration's loudest voice on abortion rights after the fall of Roe v. Wade.
Today, our daughters know fewer rights than their grandmothers. This is a healthcare crisis.
In all these weeks of uncertainty over whether Biden would leave the race, Harris supporters have argued she's the most obvious replacement and likely the only one able to use the tens of millions already raised by the Biden-Harris campaign. But critics pushed back, pointing to head-to-head polling numbers against Donald Trump not much better than Biden's.
But the polling is mixed at best and unclear or ambiguous about who might be able to step in at this late stage and really be in a position to win in November.
While Biden's endorsement gives Harris a boost, it doesn't automatically make her the nominee. Democrats now have two choices: coalesce around Harris or consider other options. Every day they wait, a day closer to a vote with polling favoring their Republican rival.
The Democrats are going to fall in line behind Kamala Harris. They really don't have a choice at this point. It's, again, too late in the game to have another candidate.
Others touted as possible contenders like California Governor Gavin Newsom, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg are now endorsing Harris. It's unclear if anyone else will challenge her. If they did, they'd be going against the current leader of their party and potentially alienating a key Democratic voting group, Black women, crucial for Biden winning the White House in 2020.
I think there's a real fear among Democrats that not endorsing Kamala Harris would be a real slap in the face. And I think that not picking her, there's a real risk of turning off some Democratic base voters.
Harris has made it clear she wants the top job, writing, "My intention is to earn and win this nomination." Former President Bill Clinton has also endorsed Harris, along with several Democratic lawmakers. But party power players like Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi have so far held off, leaving room for the possibility of an open convention in August where delegates could be free to decide. Still, that process favors Harris, with most of the delegates loyal Biden supporters.
I really think that Kamala Harris will have an easy go of it at the convention in terms of wrapping up the nomination.
If so, the big question then will be, who will Harris choose as a running mate?
She's from California. I'm looking for someone probably from the Midwest. That's where the blue wall is states like Michigan, Wisconsin, I mean, Pennsylvania.
Someone who does have a track record of bringing Republicans over to the Democratic side, at least for an election, or can speak to voters who haven't yet made up their mind will be essential.
After weeks of ugly party infighting, there will be pressure for Democrats to come together, and that could happen quickly. There was already a plan to nominate Biden virtually before the convention. If Democrats do that for Harris, they could project a united front when they meet, the same way Republicans rallied around Trump.
What I'm looking to see is, can they coalesce quickly? Can they put aside their differences in pursuit of a common goal?
Harris is challenged now to woo her own party and voters, with time ticking down to November.
Tim Naftali is a presidential historian, joins us now from Montreal. Tim, wow, can you put this in some historical context? How would you begin to describe this moment?
You know, every so often, something happens in history that hasn't happened before. And it's important to take a deep breath and consider that we are watching new developments and changes in a very important country in the world. There have been presidents before who have decided not to run for re-election when they had a chance to do so, but this is the first time that a president has announced that he won't be running for re-election when it wasn't what he really wanted to say, and at a time that was not of his choosing, and with only a few weeks to go before the nominating convention where he was supposed to be the nominee. So this is unprecedented in American history.
If this is right, please tell me if I've got this wrong. Will this really be the first presidential election since 1976 to not have a Biden, a Bush, or a Clinton on the ticket? And is there anything in history that gives us some guidance here?
Well, we are watching, at least partly, a generational shift in American politics. The idea was he was a transitional figure. And what we're seeing now is the transition is starting a lot faster than he would have hoped, but actually is starting at a time that many Americans want to see it happen. So we're seeing a shift in the political elite now on the Democratic side. We've seen a shift in the political elite on the Republican side. Indeed, the entire Republican convention was a reminder that this is not Ronald Reagan's party. So there's a new elite, presidential political elite in the United States. What's going to be extremely interesting to see is whether the Democratic Party coalesces around Kamala Harris and whom she chooses to be part of her team, because together they will represent the new Democratic Party.
So, Tim, you're a historian. I have to ask you how you think Joe Biden will be judged by history, not just for his presidency, but for his decision.
Joe Biden will be remembered as the individual who beat Donald Trump in 2020 and stopped the Trump chaos, restored respect to American institutions abroad, restored American commitment to stability around the world, and who brought civility to the White House. Joe Biden took a decision that was difficult for him and represented giving away some power, not leaving office, but giving up power. And that is the hardest thing for a leader to do. He did it. He didn't do it as quickly as some wanted, but he did it nonetheless because he recognized that holding on to power would have imperiled what mattered most to him.
All right, presidential historian Tim Naftali, thank you.
Thank you, Adrienne.
There is a lot more to discuss here. How do the Democrats go forward as they face attacks from their opponent? I'll have that conversation with our panel next. The race against time for Democrats to choose their presidential nominee.
Kamala Harris is at the top of my list.
Does it make political sense to crown Kamala Harris?
The Republicans were all teed up to run against President Biden.
Or would more voices sound more Democratic? An awful lot depends on how the party carries this out. So let's bring in our panel guiding us through this very busy political season. Tia Mitchell and Brian Stelter. Brian, first to you. I suppose now, with Biden out, Donald Trump is the oldest person to ever be the nominee for president. Are you expecting the Democrats to go to town on that point?
Yes, I think that's now going to be one of the major themes of this election. It was already age because of Biden's age. Trump, for all of his faults, has aged differently than Biden in recent years. But if you go back and watch Trump's convention speech, he does sound diminished compared to 2020 and compared to 2016. We are going to hear Democrats point that out again and again, that Trump is too old and too reckless to be president. And now, of course, this is a campaign of contrasts. Rather than having two octogenarians on the ticket, two elderly men, now it's a real campaign of contrast.
There's a lot we don't know about this campaign, though. Tia, Vice President Kamala Harris seems to be racking up endorsements by the hour, but not from everyone, particularly not the party elders like Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi. What's the strategy there?
Well, I think some of the strategy is just these party elders have already taken a lot of heat for reportedly being really active behind the scenes and encouraging President Biden to step aside. And so I think those same party elders are now trying to be really careful about how they move forward. I don't think any of them are against Kamala Harris becoming the party's nominee, but I think they're sensitive to some of the perception that they were the ones who muscled Biden out, and therefore they want to be sensitive to not causing further harm, as now the big goal of the Democratic Party is to get unified around whether it's Vice President Harris most likely, but whoever is the party nominee. And so that's what I think their silence is about, not necessarily a judgment on the vice president.
That's interesting. I mean, could it also be, Brian, a little bit of this is still a democratic process, this is not a coronation, the delegates have to make their own decision?
Yes, definitely. You know, going back to the Republican argument, Republicans are saying this is a coup. Biden's been overthrown. The Democrats are installing whoever they want. This is the regime acting. You know, it doesn't actually seem to be that way. This was a decision that Biden reached after weeks of pressure. And frankly, it was the low poll numbers that were probably the most important factor for him. Looking at polls in swing states and seeing that he was not just losing, but he was collapsing. But when it comes to Kamala Harris now, it is important to have a real process play out. It's important for voters to see that there is a process playing out. But I am impressed by how many people have endorsed Harris in the last few hours. There has been a deluge of endorsements. You're right, it's not Obama, it's not Pelosi, but many, many Democratic leaders are coming behind her, including most of the people who would be considered to be her vice presidential pick. So there is very much an effort underway to show unity within the party.
And Tia, you know, Republicans are making the argument, and they made it very quickly, that if Joe Biden isn't fit to run for re-election, then he's just not fit to remain as president. Where does that argument go? And I wonder, is there any concern that the enemies of the United States, for example, will take advantage of this moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what a narrative we're hearing from Republicans, that Biden's decision today weakens his presidency. But I think most American people consider it two different things. It's one thing to say, yes, he's got 4 months left on his term, or 5 months at this point. Can he continue that, finish out what he started, versus asking for another 4 years on top of that? But I do think, you know, there are critics who are going to say, is he unfit? But again, we're talking about 5 months. We're not talking about and quite frankly, 5 months that includes a lame duck term after the election. So I don't know if Republicans are going to be very successful in convincing Joe Biden that he should step aside. There's also a lot of, you know, again, it's easier said than done. If Joe Biden were to step aside and let Kamala Harris become president, then you've got to have a confirmation process, again, for a very short lame duck term. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, honestly, for him to step aside unless something, I think, happens health-wise where he believes that he cannot fulfill his duties. But again, we've been hearing from Joe Biden for the past month since that debate that he doesn't necessarily think he can't fulfill the duties. I think his decision today was, like Brian said, the writing on the walls, the cratering poll results, not so much that Biden himself decided he could not do it.
So we're already seeing, you're talking about the Republican reaction, we're already seeing Trump talk about possible debate with Harris, arguing, hey, this debate should move to Fox, right? This historically Trump-friendly network. What does that tell you, Brian, about what is happening within the Trump camp now?
Trump seems a little bit scared. He doesn't know how to react. His campaign doesn't seem to know how to react to this Sunday shocker. Even though it's been predicted for weeks, we know that the Trump team wanted to be running against Biden. That's what they're modeling in their campaign, and everything is structured against Biden. Now it's all been blown up. That's why this is one of the most interesting days in American political history. Everything has suddenly changed. This is not about two old white guys trying to run a rematch anymore. Americans didn't want that. And now they actually are getting something new. With the newness comes a lot of uncertainty, including for Trump. So yeah, Trump's backing out of that ABC debate in September. He says he wants it to be on Fox instead. I think Kamala Harris is going to come out and say, sure, I'll debate you anytime, anywhere, including on your home network, Fox. It's in her interest to have more debates with Trump. It's in her interest to be out there being the prosecutor against the convicted felon.
Lots of names out there about people who might challenge Kamala Harris. At this point, though, Tia, I mean, who, if she's the big shark in the water, who else is going to dip their toe in that water?
I mean, I think there are plenty of people who, want to be part of what they feel is this effort to preserve democracy by keeping former President Trump from returning to the White House. And so they feel that sense of duty. But there's also those political aspirations. There are a lot of upsides to running on the ticket in this short term. You won't be blamed if the ticket doesn't win, because this was kind of an 11th hour change. You can get your name out there, increase your name recognition, and make you even stronger should Trump win and it become this open race again in 2028. So we're looking at a lot of the governors in swing states. And let's be honest, I think we're looking at more than likely a white person, more than likely a white male, because there is concern about misogyny and racism affecting support for Vice President Harris. So I think we can expect a white male to kind of to speak to the anxiety that perhaps some voters may have about a Black woman, a woman of color at the top of the ticket. But again, those swing states, so Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro, North Carolina Governor Cooper, and even Kentucky's not a swing state, but the fact that Kentucky is a red state with a Democratic governor who can speak to rural America puts Andy Beshear, for example, in the mix as well.
I keep hearing the name Mark Kelly from Arizona as well. All these people who I think were also being mentioned as potential top of the ticket, maybe they just moved their resumes down to be potential running mates, possibly. We don't have much time left. So, Brian, if I could just throw to you one last thought. What on earth are you looking for now? In the timeline of what needs to happen next, what are we watching for?
We're watching for how much support consolidates behind Harris, whether anyone like Joe Manchin decides to actually challenge her ahead of the convention, who she picks to be VP, and then what Trump's attacks lines will be. This is American history in action, though. Hillary Clinton 8 years ago tried to become the first woman president. She barely lost to Donald Trump. And now here we are 8 years later. A woman of color is once again in this position to challenge a man that many Americans think is racist and sexist. This is a battle for what America is and who are Americans, and can there actually be equality in the United States? Honestly, I think this is a much more interesting and important election than it was 12 hours ago.
Wow, interesting. Brian Stelter, Tia Mitchell, thank you both for all your analysis over the past 400 years. I'll be back tomorrow from Paris as we count down to the start of the Olympic Games and the opening ceremony this Friday.
Thanks, Adrian. Up next, it's back to Newfoundland and the moment this weekend that some feared would never happen. The view from the dock as a fishing crew lost on the North Atlantic for days returned home. Another look at that incredible rescue story. The crew of the Elite Navigator, missing for nearly 3 days off the coast of Newfoundland, now safe and sound with their rescuers. Their families and community held out hope for their survival after they vanished last week, but fear did creep in. So the moment they were able to step back on shore into the arms of their loved ones, it was magical. And tonight, it's our moment.
Alarms went off. I was cooking supper, and within 5 minutes we had 7 men aboard a life raft. There was fire around us everywhere. It escalated so quick. And then we had 2 guys that couldn't swim, so we were trying to make a plan on the fly. We were going to save those guys and get those in the life raft and everything, but I was total and burst in flame when I jumped in that water.
It wasn't easy. Every time the phone ticks or jingle or whatever, I would scrabble. I knew he was coming home. Something told me he was coming home. And he's home. It's over 50 hours that we spent on top of each other, keeping each other warm. We just had the water that was supplied by the safety companies in the life raft. The hardest thing about it was knowing that we were alive and that everybody in there was thinking the opposite. So that was the hardest thing to cope with out there.
We kept the humor going for 3 days, and we knew someone to find us eventually. I couldn't wait to get on board and something to eat. Yeah.
We were going to party.
And so they should. What a fantastic story. You know sometimes how you hear people say that the media love bad news, negative stories, because somehow that sells more? Don't buy that for a moment. There's no better story than what happened in Newfoundland and Labrador, and what a fantastic ending. For everyone here at The National, thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to The National's YouTube channel. I'm Ian Hannah-Mansing in Vancouver. See you tomorrow.